A tale, let it be told. On the afternoon when heat sat on the roundabout like a fat cat on a warm stone, a uniformed corporal stepped out from the shade of a checkpoint canopy and reached for a small black camera. "No filming," he said, and his hand arrived before his reason. He wore a reflective vest that believed high visibility is the same as high wisdom. The camera belonged to a woman in a bright head wrap and plain blouse, standing just beyond the chalk line that traffic had learned to respect. She had been filming the stop-and-search routine, the way one might film rain learning manners on a tin roof. The corporal's fingers closed around the camera. The woman did not snatch back. She let his mistake complete itself so it would have no excuse later. Her eyes were steady as a level used by builders who dislike crooked walls. "Officer," she said softly, "you are touching no public record hewn with private fingers." The talking drum in the palm wine kiosk nearby, disguised as a stool with a cracked seat, muttered, "Watch this lens. Watch this boy in borrowed thunder. Watch the woman whose work is to teach sunlight its rights." A week earlier, in a room at City Hall, where fans pretend to be wind, the mayor had slid a memo across a table. Unannounced field audit, public recording rights and frontline courtesy. The chief of communications. Zuri Amakwe. Signed quietly. Her team called it Project Open Lens, to test how departments behave when the public watches. She did not hire actors. She wore a head wrap, left her ID in her bag and took a small camera like a tourist of truth. In the city registry, her title ate space. Director, Communications and Public Information, Office of the Mayor. In the street, her rank wore cotton and patience. Now at the roundabout, Corporal Nati had just seized the lens that belonged to all of them. He did not yet know that the auditor he was educating in the language of intimidation spoke policy more fluently than he spoke orders. If this tale reached you at a crossroads, let it keep walking. Likes he to carry the drumbeat, shareful. With someone who's been told no filming when sunlight had paid the rent. And isik, comment isik with your city plus time. So the next part travels to your square without missing its bus. The seizure, the crowd and the ID that waited its turn bring your ears, set them down like calabashes under the shade of a neem. The checkpoint at Jungs Asafo, roundabout, was a small theatre that performed the same play daily, trotro drivers auditioning for patients, private cars rehearsing innocence, hawkers selling plantain chips to the middle of decisions. The district police ran the stop and search with cones, whistles, and a belief that today would be the day crime apologized in public. Zuri Amakwetis arrived mid-afternoon. She wore the kind of head wrap that defied dust and the kind of sandals that keep promises to arches. She stood outside the cordon. As required, next to a stack of confiscated number plates that looked like the guest list to a wedding where gates had rules. She lifted her camera and began to record. Her shot did not trespass into pockets or papers. It framed procedure. How officers flagged cars, how they greeted, whether they explained why, whether they searched with care or with insult, whether they remembered that public space wears public eyes. Muttered Auntie Abina, who sold chilled water like salvation. The brave ones have returned. She meant auditors, citizen journalists, people who hold the powerful's mirror at an unflattering angle. She had seen them before, some loud, some learned. Zuri was quiet, which is the fastest way to be heard by everything worth hearing. Siraxi pulled in. The driver, who collected accusations the way bumpers collect stickers, rolled down his window. Sergeant Kumson, the supervisor with a belly full of experience and a heart that had not been defeated by paperwork, leaned in with a greeting first. "Good afternoon, boss," he said to the driver. "Greet, ask, assist." The new city protocol had visited his station once. He tried to practice, though habit is a stool with stubborn legs. Then Corporal Nati saw the camera. Not the driver's face, not the sergeant's greeting, not the cones whose angles could trip anyone who believed they were neutral. He saw the lens. Black, unblinking, not laughing at his jokes. Training, half-learned and half-invented, whispered security, the way rumors whisper snake before anyone checks the rope. He strode toward Zuri, Hand out. No filming, he said, and the hand arrived before the reason. Zuri did not retreat and did not advance. She allowed the space between them to remain public. Officer, she replied, tone level as the horizon. I am documenting a public process from a public place. Your policy says, citizens may record, so long as they do not interfere. Policy says, Nati barked, because when men feel watched they sometimes break their own mirrors. He reached, grasped, and seized. The camera's strap slid across Zuri's wrist like a reluctant lizard. The crowd performed a small convulsion of sound, surprise, caution, the music of trouble rehearsing its first verse. Zuri let go. A choice. Not a defeat. She watched him hold the camera like a trophy he didn't know how to display. Thank you, she said calmly, for demonstrating chain of custody procedures. You will now issue me a receipt for a seized item, stating the statutory authority, the reason, and our name and number. And you will keep the recording intact. Please face this way while you repeat your reason. Your voice should be captured on the B lens. This B lens? He echoed, and the palm wine kiosk stool snorted. Zuri tapped the small E-pen camera, clipped to her blouse. It had been rolling since she arrived. Crowds learn quickly. Several phones lifted at once, the way birds remember migration without asking for minutes. Sergeant Coomson arrived like a man late to his own intervention. Corporal, he warned, soft but edged, we allow recording. We benefit when people see we are following procedure. Sir, it is unsafe, Nate insisted, glancing at the ring of witnesses who were suddenly learning that witness translates to camera in many dialects. She can post to spoil our image. Images spoil themselves or improve themselves, Zuri said. Cameras are not chefs, they are plates. Madam, Coomson interjected, we understand. Please step back another 2 paces while we work. Corporal, return her. Not until I check contents, Nate said, backing toward the canopy with the camera held like a footballer retreating into his own half. The motion stirred the crowd. It stirred the Tark's law. Zuri kept her voice on the temperature of tea you can drink without regret. Officer, she said, a seizure ikin without a warrant requires exigent circumstances. You have not stated one. If you intend to view, bean, or delete in contents, you require either my consent or judicial order. Which do you have? He hesitated. Training and pride had shared a bed and were now arguing about whose name would be on the child. Madam, you are obstructing. Your sergeant asked me to step back 2 paces, Zuri replied, stepping back 3. I am obeying more than he asked. It is a good habit. She turned to reuse in Anti-Abina. Please narrate the scene for my B-lens, she said softly. Time, place, action. The water seller straightened, suddenly, anchor woman. This is a Sappho roundabout. Thursday, sun stubborn. Police have seized a small camera from a woman who was not in the road. The woman is calm like a bucket that knows the well. The officer is hot like midday yam. The sergeant is walking like a man negotiating with mosquitoes. Laughter freed oxygen. Even the cones smiled a little. Corporal, Coomson said, more steel now. Issue un receipt or return property, apologize. We will demonstrate, greet, ask, assist, for madam. I cannot apologize to camera people, Nati grumbled. His mouth tried to gather a crowd of words. His rank told them to disperse. He slapped the camera into his palm and felt somewhere under his uniform the itch of a mistake that had already sprouted leaves. Zuri looked at him, not as a villain but as a student who had been taught to fear sunlight because snakes also love it. What is your name, officer? She asked. Say it for the record. Narti, he said. Corporal. Thank you. Corporal Narti, she replied. She took a small notebook from her bag, the kind with pages that like facts and pens that hate excuses. She wrote his name, his number, the time, the temperature of his voice. She wrote more, details that make reports into bridges across the river of denial. Madam, Coomson said, for peace, please, and we will do the right thing. He nodded at Nati. "Receipt." "Receipt book in the car," the corporal muttered, then fetched it with the speed of someone discovering paper can be mercy. He scribbled, tore, and handed Zuri a copy that smelled like carbon and humility. The reason line he left blank, then met Zuri's eyes and filled it. Seized in error, returned. Zuri accepted it, nodded once, and held out her hand. Camera. He handed it back, but his hand could not resist holding on just a little, a tug at dignity he did not need. Zuri released the tug with a smile, then lifted the camera and scanned it like a midwife checking limbs, lens clear, strap unbroken, red light still blinking. "The record survives," she said, more to the crowd than to him. "Now we will record you doing right." She stepped back, framed Harve Sergeant Koomsand in the shot. He faced the camera with a courage that was mostly practice. "Good afternoon," he said. "This is a PAMA, public checkpoint. Citizens may record from a safe distance. We ask that you do not interfere. We greet you. We ask for your patience. We assist as we can." He paused, looked at Nate. The corporal stared at the lens like a goat, trying to decide if the new fence was an insult or a compliment. "Corporal?" the sergeant prompted. Nate swallowed. He had two choices: become a meme or become a man who learned in public. "Good afternoon," he muttered. "I apologize for the seizure. It will not repeat." "Say it to the public, not to the floor," Zuri suggested, tone light as foam. "The public paid for your vest. It deserves your eyes." He looked up. "I am sorry. Citizens may record." The crowd murmured approval, which is the sound villages make when men remember they were born to be useful. Zuri lowered the camera. "Thank you," she said. "I appreciate your work at the road. It is hot, it is boring, it is dangerous. When we film, we are not your enemies. We are your photographers. The city is the bride. Let her wedding be remembered." "Madam," Koomsand said, "if you would like to file a complaint, we will record it." "Not complaint," Zuri replied. "After-action note. There is a difference." She took a card from her bag and handed it to him. Not a loud badge, just a white rectangle with her name and title. Small letters that carry big responsibilities. He read. His eyebrows rose the way chairs rise when someone stands up suddenly. "Ah," he said. "Ah," echoed the palm wine stool, because drum humor enjoys symmetry. Zuri did not speak louder. She spoke much plainer. "Sergeant, this city expects greet, ask, assist, reason cards, no deletion without warrant, and receipt for seizures. I keep records so that your good days become policy and your bad minutes become training." Koomsand nodded slowly. "We have the posters," he said. "Some officers read them like sermons, admire, don't practice. Tonight," Zuri said, "we will practice." She looked at Nate, not unkindly. "You will help me teach." He blinked, surprised that a ladder had been placed where he expected a whip. "Bring your team to Harm City Hall gate at 5 Training Room B," Zuri continued. "We will watch at this, she tapped the camera, "and watch them ourselves unwatching. We will build a bench of lens for those who forget that the lens belongs to the village." She turned to the crowd, lifted the camera once more and captured not just faces, but agreement. That tender resource that cracks when shouted at, but multiplies when thanked. She left. The roundabout resumed its theatre. The cones returned to their stubborn geometry. The drum in the kiosk leaned back and whispered, "Sunlight has hired a lawyer." A tale. A tale. Let it be told. The after-action, the bench of lens and the policy that learned to wave by late afternoon, my training room. At City Hall smelled like markers and purpose. On the wall, a poster in 5 languages. Greet, ask, assist. Below it, smaller text that refused to be shy. Public recording in public spaces is lawful. Assist their safety. Do not seize devices. Do not view or delete without consent or warrant. Beside the poster, a table carried a pea bowl of water. For the ancestors, a stack of reason cards in and a plate of carbofrutillas because reform burns calories. Zurit arrived with a small team. Kwaku, the videographer who dressed like a rumor. Selina, the policy analyst who carried bullet points the way a drummer carries sticks. Ayo, the community liaison who greeted rooms as if they were cousins arrived from upcountry. Sergeant Coomson came with my Corporal Nati and 3 other officers whose eyes had decided to behave. Behind them trickled market women, trotro mates, a mechanic with a loyal wrench, a university student, majoring in outrage, and Vai Auntie Abinasa, who had closed early and brought chilled water like diplomacy. Zuri began the meeting the way griots begin trouble, with respect, so that truth can misbehave without becoming rude. She poured a little water on the floor. For those who died before policies learned to be useful, she said. For those who lived to teach us. She looked at the room. We are not here to blame. We are here to budget. We will budget our pride, our voice, our time. She played the footage from the roundabout. The screen showed heat, cones, the small ritual of a mistaken hand, the larger ritual of a crowd becoming witness. The sound captured Nati's voice at its worst and at its repair. Zuri did not pause at his mistake to humiliate him. She paused at his apology to make it longer. Please listen to me, Tone, she said. Tone is how policies find their shoes. Madam, the university student blurted, why should police fear cameras? Cameras protect Wuthamard too. They don't fear lenses, Zuri said. They fear being badly portrayed for doing a hard job. And sometimes they fear because they were taught to fear. We will replace fear with procedure. She lifted a reason card. A small laminated card like a passport for better sentences. On one side, introduce, state reason, boundary, assist. On the other, no viewing, deleting without consent, warrant. Offer safer filming spot. Offer name and number. Offer receipt if property is seized for evidence under law. She handed the card to Nati. Read the first line. He read, voice rough with the work of retooling. Good afternoon, I'm Corporal Name. You are free to record from here. Please stand behind the cone for safety. The room murmured its approval, the way a market murmurs when a widow negotiates well. Selina stepped up with a policy, like a sword wrapped in cloth. We have 3 new sentences to add to the operations manual, she said. 1. Citizens may record from public places. Officers shall not interfere except to ensure safety. 2. Any seizures of devices require statutory authority, exigent circumstances and a receipt. Viewing, deleting requires consent or warrant. 3. Supervisors shall greet the lens and state the policy allowed every hour on the hour during operations. Repetition turns paper into habit. Every hour? A constable protested. We will sound like radios. Good, Io said. Radios carry messages to people too far to see. Our mothers sell to those too far to cook. Zuri nodded toward a covered shape in the corner. Unveil, she said. 2 municipal carpenters pulled the cloth, revealing the bench of lens. Iroko wood, polished, with a back carved high and a seat wide. Across the back, carved deep enough for future budgets to respect. The lens belongs to the village. On the arm, a carved camera and see open eye sat like siblings. This bench does not punish, Zuri said. It calibrates. Officers who forget will sit 1 hour. Citizens who mock instead of remember will sit 1 hour. While seated, you will watch a loop of good stops and good recordings. You will be right. What the camera helped, what the mouth harmed, what the ear could do better. Auntie sniffed in approval. My stall needs a smaller one, she joked. The mouth belongs to the village. Laughter shook the room's corners loose so the hinges could be replaced. Sergeant Coomson raised a hand. Madam, out there is heat, insults and fear. Sometimes camera people poke. They stand in traffic. They narrate us like we are clowns. We need protection from bait. Bait exists, Zuri agreed. So does discipline. Use greet-ask assistant like a rope. Keep them safe. Keep yourselves safe. If they cross the lane, ask. If they refuse, state the lawful boundary and assist them to a safer spot. Your power is the public's loan. Use it as if the lender is watching, because we are. She clicked to the next slide. Case studies. A clip of a in-market raid where an officer slapped a phone. He was later beaten by in policy and in video and learned the cost of stubbornness. A clip of a no-traffic stop where an officer waved the filmer to a safer spot, narrated his process in real time, and ended with the driver thanking him. Which one do we want our city to be? Zuri asked. Even the constable who feared radios answered correctly with his eyebrows. Then came the can't cut round table. Mechanic Yoink said, sometimes I film because last year they said I removed plates for nothing. The video showed our receipt and reasons. It saved my mouth from shouting. Trotro mate Fifi confessed, I film to become YouTube's at small, but I don't want to spoil anybody's bread. Ayo taught a quick bystander protocol. If filming, maintain distance, do not coach, capture context, protect subject's dignity. Blur faces before posting if no public interest is served by exposure. Finally, Zuri invited Corporal Nati to speak. He stood like a man peeling yam for the first time in front of his in-laws, awkward, determined not to bleed. I felt exposed, he said simply. Not to bullets, to judgment. I feared my mother might see me and not recognize the boy she raised to be kind, so I tried to control the camera. Today I learned, control is not the same as command. Command is procedure that survives being watched. Write that, Zuri told Selena, who printed it large. Command is procedure that survives being watched. They broke for battered befrotters and water. Outside, the high bench of lens caught the late afternoon sun and threw it back like a promise. People took photos beside it. No one tried to seize the photos. Progress is often measured in small, sagest knots. After the break, they wrote hot commitments quotes on the board. Police. State the policy aloud hourly. Carry reason cards. Offer safer filming spots. Issue receipts or shut up. Public. Film from outside the cordon. Don't bait. Protect dignity. Post with context. City Hall. Release training videos. Audit quarterly. Publish seizure logs. Logs? Sergeant raised an eyebrow. Men of paper know the cost of paper. Zuri grinned. Digital? Stop log my has a sister Sam. Lens log. If any seizure occurs, we read why. If none occur, we read may relief I. She closed with a story, because policy without story is like stew without pepper. Thick, unhappy. Years ago, the water company cut pipes in the night and never explained. People set tires on fire to become the camera. Now we give them puta lenses, so they can be hot firefighters cool instead. As people filed out, Constable Ama Mensa, one of the three officers who had kept her eyes polite, approached Zuri. Madam, she said, what is your full, real rank? Zuri smiled. Elder sister of the narrative. Then, seeing the curiosity unquenched, she added, Chief of Communications. My uniform is clarity. The constable saluted, not theatrically, but in the way backs memorized truth. Then teach us to wear clarity, she said. That evening, the House City Radio Chuntas discussed the bench of lens. Callers argued, callers agreed, callers performed their citizenry in stereo. The next morning, camera shops reported a small increase in sales. The minister complained about cameras and then asked for a copy of the reason card, proving again that hypocrisy is just desire without courage. 2 days later, Zuri's office published Guideline 17B, Public Recording at Public Operations. It contained definitions that breathed, procedures that walked, penalties that did math. It referenced Greet Ask Assist, reason cards, lens log, and the Mayo bench of lens. It ended with a proverb: sunlight is free but not careless. The city had not become paradise, but it had taught the sun a new job description, and the sun had agreed to work overtime. A tale, let it be told. The Festival of Light, the Crisis on Camera, and the Salute Not Made of Metal. A month later, the city held its Festival of Light, a market day thick Saturday when stalls borrowed the road and the road forgave them. Drummers called to ankles. Dancers replied. Vendors tested the elasticity of hygiene. City Hall set up a small stage near the clock tower. On it, the bench of lens, draped like a chief. Beside it, a banner with 5 words that had begun to taste like routine: greet, ask, assist, record, respect. Zuri moved through the crowd, head wrap bright enough to declare but not to distract. She had come to listen, not to speak. The plan was simple. Officers would state the policy and on the hour. The public would film from safe distances. The bench would host short Meku's teach-ins. If nothing happened, Bakarus that would be news, but cities rarely let plans finish their sentences without editing. At noon, a Feo Mao pickup missed the memo about patience and tried to drive through a dance. Feet scattered. A small boy fell. The pickup braked late. His ankle twisted pain into the air. Panic began its usual choir. Corporal Nati, stationed nearby with Constable Mensa, sprinted. "Back!" he shouted, but the shout had learned to travel with Greet Ask Assist. By now, "Good people, please give space. Filming welcome from behind the cordon," he added, gesturing with open palms toward chalk marks that did not yet exist, but which the crowd invented on the spot. Phones rose. 10, 50, 100. Io ran with cones like a juggler who had to attend a fire and a wedding at once. Zuris lifted her camera, framing not the boy's face, dignity, but the procedure. Mensa checking airway and spine, Nate directing, a woman fanning shade over the child's eyes with her headscarf, a mechanic offering a clean rag. Because his shop had run out of sterile but not out of care. "Ambulance 2 minutes," a radio crackled. 2 minutes can be a continent or a coin. Today it was a drumbeat. Sergeant Coomsons arrived and did something he had practiced in Training Room B. He faced a camera, not one, a forestas of them, and Iggy spoke policy. "We are assisting an injured child. Please film from here. We will need a path when the ambulance comes. Volunteers, help me carve that path." He pointed, not at the lens, but at the task beyond it. The crowd obliged. They formed a corridor, like a prayer that knew where to land. The ambulance arrived, its siren now harmonizing with drummers who refused to be replaced by electricity. The stretcher slid. The child rose from the ground with the humility of people who discover they can be carried by strangers. Someone cried. Someone prayed. Someone filmed the prayer, because prayers also need archives. After the ambulance left, a man in a blue cap shoved his way to the front, sweating self-importance. "Who authorized this filming?" he demanded, voice searching for an audience and finding one reluctant. "You cannot just... This will make us look like we fail." Zuri recognized the tone before the face. Regional Director K. Mensima. An administrator with authority that sometimes wore pride like a tie, she stepped forward, camera lowered, ID still in her bag because she preferred sentences to shields. "Director," she said gently, "the filming protected U12. It will show order, performed under pressure. We will seize devices," he threatened reflexively, an old reflex like a scar that itches in rain. "Your guideline, 17BT, forbids that," Zuri replied. "You signed." He blinked. The crowd leaned in like palm trees eavesdropping on a wind that had something new to say. "Director," Sergeant Coomson added carefully, "we need the cameras. They teach us how we looked when we were trying to be correct." He gestured toward the mock bench of lens on stage. Come and sit. Let us speak from wood. Mensima bristled. I don't sit on benches. Then stand. Auntie Abina called cheerfully from the second row. But, listen. Laughter negotiated the moment into mercy. Zuri walked him to the stage without dragging him there. She spoke into the small mic that had borrowed its power from the clock tower. People of Amanfro, she said, you saw a policy. Greet panic. You saw phones. Become corridors. You saw the officers. Assist without swatting at light. This is open lens. Working. She invited Constable Mensa to speak. He did, voice steady because confidence had learned its manners. When we say record, please keep faces and of victims safe. Film procedure. If you post, write context. If you want more, come to Training Room Beak. We teach on Wednesdays. Then she turned to Poisiter Corporal Nati. The crowd knew his face now, the man who seized a camera and then learned to hold himself. He cleared his throat, discovering it had grown a new room for sentences. I once lost to a small camera, he said. The crowd laughed, then hushed. I learned that cameras are how villagers. They fetch water, evidence, for the town. If you see me forget again, bring your phone close enough for me to hear it's my better self. They clapped because they recognized my obedience to truth. Hold, Zuri said into the mic, not to the crowd, to the ascriptin of the afternoon which threatened to switch genres. Greet, ask, assist, she called, a reminder thrown like a life ring. Constable Mensa stepped between the shove and the story that would regret it. Sirs, she said to the plainclothes, introduce yourselves or step back. They introduced themselves. Their voices tried to hide, but their names did not. He read the lines he had been made to memorize in a room that had smelled of markers and purpose, and the crowd discovered they contained no insults, only boundaries and help. The demonstration resumed in a safer lane. Phones captured feet moving forward rather than hands rising. The drum in the kiosk nodded to its own heartbeat, like an elder pleased that the children had remembered the chorus, as the sun aimed for the horizon like a lorry that had argued enough for one day. Director Mensimas approached Zuri. The crowd made space, not out of fear, but out of curiosity. He stood very straight, the way men stand when pride has just been gently escorted out of them by usefulness. He saluted. Not military, but civic, palm open to the sky, a gesture borrowed from old greetings. Madam Kaumata, Chief of Communications, he said, using her title as if he had finally read the memo he had signed. I came to seize house devices and found discipline. I salute your real rank. Keeper of the city's story. Zuri returned not a salute, but a betbukbei, a tender weight given to earth. Director, she said, your real rank is keeper of doors. Keep them open. He nodded, cheeks a little red with the effort of changing. We will fund benches of lens a tool for all districts, he announced to the square, publicly committing in a way that budgets dread and justice saves. We will add Guideline 17 Bihi to the EU Academy. We will print reason cards thick enough to survive trousers. We will publish lens logs monthly. Add bench oil to the budget, Auntie Abina yelled. Wood needs love-like policy. Add water to Auntie's stall, Zuri countered. The bench always drinks there for free. They laughed because nations are built by jokes that remember work. The festival wound down. Children discovered they could sleep standing up. Drummers counted their coins, then their ribs, then their blessings. The Ponti bench of lens akot glowed in the last light like a proverb agreeing to be furniture. Zuri sat on it alone for a minute. The camera rested in her lap. Her hands rested on the camera. Io joined her with 2 sachets of water, and they drank like conspirators of good trouble. You didn't flash the badge even once, Io said. I will use it tomorrow, Zuri replied. Today the badge needed to see how unnecessary it can be when procedure is loved in public. She looked at the clock tower, which had learned to be accurate only on good days. We will draft the festival after action tonight. Pull clips. Title it Sunlight at Work. Include the apology. That is the spice that makes policy edible. Io said, because good assistants hold praise the way cost accountants hold receipts. Tenderly but with rules. What shall we do with men who still want to pluck lenses? So give them bound stories, Asa, Zuri said. Stories make hands forget how to snatch. She rose, and if they still snatch, give them may benches. They left the square to its night, which began to iron its darkness smooth. The kiosk stool stretched and sighed. The city had learned a new greeting. Sunlight didn't shout, it stayed. Cameras blinked like polite fireflies. The road, which had seen more arrogance than apology, settled into the knowledge that tomorrow another hand might reach for a lens and another voice might say, "The lens belongs to the village." A tale. A tale. Let it be told. The telling is finished. The watching you begins. If you reached here, leave your footprint for the drum. Like, so the lens keeps walking. Share downs with someone who turns on their camera when the world forgets its script. And comment, you're in city plus time. So the next folktale finds your roundabout before pride does.